Here we are, fully immersed in summer buying season. It's typically a busy and therefore happy time of year for real estate professionals. The sun is shining, our clients are packing boxes because they're moving. They're moving because we help them buy or sell a home. They're one step closer to building their real estate empire and achieving the American dream. Such a happy time of year for everyone. Now, this year, 2024 buying season, is that how it feels for you guys? Speaking only from my team's experience, it has been incredibly busy. We continue to see an increase in applications each week, and every weekend we're sending out a lot of pre-approval letters. We've noticed that our buyers are both more serious and more active. Inventory, though, that's still the thorn in our side. There just isn't enough. The week ending April 20th, so 2 weeks ago, was the most new listings we've seen in Northern Nevada come on in a single week in over a year. So that's good news. Last week, we only saw 115 homes hit the market, and we saw 126 go pending. So it makes sense that last weekend, we ran into a lot of bidding wars, and we saw that new listings went pending very, very quickly. When we compare this to previous weeks this year, it is a slight uptick in homes for sale. But when we compare the amount of listings that came on this week to this week in previous years, it's less. So even with higher interest rates, it isn't enough to feed the demand of buyers out there trying to lock down a home. And we know why, or at least we think we do. Builders have been underbuilding since the Great Recession, so we have a supply and demand problem as millennials flood into the market. The golden handcuff of previously low interest rates are trapping a lot of homeowners in a house they hate even though it no longer fits their needs, because the mortgage payment on the other side is way too intimidating. We've analyzed all of this, ad nauseum. But then on Property Pursuits this week, Lee Stevens brought up a new perspective that his team of over 30 realtors here in Northern Nevada is running into. When they go on listing appointments, they found that some sellers are trapped by their debt, which got us thinking, are people out there who own their homes, are they acting like they're backed by gold? Are homeowners the ones funding inflation? It's only logical we point the finger at them next. We've tried literally everyone else, including boomers. I started thinking that maybe the low housing expense of a homeowner who has an interest rate in the 2s or 3s on their mortgage is giving them false confidence to spend. Now, to be fair, the confidence is only partially unfounded. They do have better cash flow because less money has to be saved for their housing expense every month. So that leaves them more money to pump into the economy. Shopping, vacationing, dining, fueling inflation flames. On the other hand, they are dipping into more debt to fuel that spending. Homeowners carry more debt on average than renters. It's kind of layered how we got to that, but homeowners have higher credit scores, in part due to the fact that they demonstrate they can make payments on a large installment loan, which is their mortgage, and they can do so consistently. That helps their credit score. The better credit rating leads to higher limits on those credit cards. So while homeowner utilization of debt is lower than renters, homeowners are using about 23% of their available debt, while renters only go up to about 30% of their credit limit. Renters are going up higher on the utilization of their credit limit. They're going up to 30%. So if you have a credit card that has a $10,000 limit, we've seen that renters will use up more of the $10,000 while homeowners will use less. But we're not comparing $10,000 to $10,000 because homeowners have a higher credit limit, so the amount of their debt is actually higher. Lee shared with us that this is going beyond credit cards. Homeowners are still using their equity, the gold in this analogy when I said backed by gold, to fund their spending habits. He's had 3 listing appointments in the past few weeks where once they reviewed the debt attached to the house, between the first mortgage and the HELOC that they took out later, the seller doesn't have enough equity to tap into to cover closing costs, pay realtor commissions, and have enough left for a down payment on a new house. There's not enough proceeds, which is wild when you consider the way that homes have appreciated over the past few years. We're talking about 20 to 25% appreciation year over year, except for the last 2 years where it was less, 3 to 4%, but still, these are big gains that we're talking about that people have blown up spending. We know all too well that inflation has been hot. So just, buying groceries is eating up a lot of this money. But I get the feeling the spending goes much further. And the Fed knows that. Wednesday was feared to be one of the biggest market-moving Fed days in history. While we all knew that a rate cut was off the table, some were actually nervous about a rate hike given the recent inflation readings. The more savvy economists were watching for commentary on how the Fed is going to handle their balance sheet. So a lot of people think that the only way that the Fed controls interest rates is using the Fed funds rate. And the Fed funds rate is not the mortgage interest rates, but it influences them. Mortgage rates are actually driven by the supply and demand of mortgage bonds. As part of the Fed's stimulation for the economy over the past decade or more, they've built a heavy balance sheet of bonds, and they've been offloading them slowly. The oversupply of bonds in the market drives up mortgage interest rates. So many were scouring the minutes that were released on Wednesday for hints of what the Fed was going to do going forward with their balance sheet, if there would be any changes to the way they're offloading bonds. We got good news here. They will slow the reduction of treasury bonds on their balance sheet from $60 billion to $25 billion, reinvesting $35 billion monthly starting in July. Actually, maybe it was June. No change to the role of mortgage-backed securities, and the next move will not be a hike. They feel they have been restrictive enough to eventually cool inflation. Hallelujah. This sparked tears of joy amongst lenders because it bodes well for interest rates. But with inventory this tight, will it really mean more deals for realtors and lenders? Is it going to actually lead to tears amongst buyers? Now, this morning, we got the jobs report. More market-moving news. Cue more tears. The market was expecting 243 jobs be added, and I was just praying for it to not be like 300, because that's what's happened the last few months. The jobs report comes out and blasts expectations. Well, in a beautiful stroke of fate and complete change of pace, we got a friendly jobs report number. This is an ironic space we live in because bad news is good news. So a report showing only 175,000 jobs added indicates some contraction in the economy. Big picture, that's kind of sad because while it's amazing news for mortgage rates, it shows that the Fed's measures to slow economic growth as a means of taming inflation are working. That's all good. It also means that there's not as many jobs for people out there, right? If those measures are working, though, if the Fed's measures to slow economic growth are working, then at some point those measures can stop, meaning rate cuts. Now, I don't feel like a terrible person celebrating bad news for the economy for 3 reasons. One, I don't think that these blockbuster jobs numbers we've been getting are actually indicative of what people are feeling in the job market. So it's nice to see some data that seems to reflect reality, you know? 2, along those same lines, conversations on Main Street have not been about how strong the economy is and how wealthy everyone feels. Most have been about how people are feeling pinched or at least nervous right now. And 3, I'm here for affordability. And I don't think our path to affordability involves home prices dropping anytime soon. So it's going to have to be interest rates coming down. Which brings me back to the tears. Will this week's news and the subsequent improvement in interest rates lead to happy tears or sad tears? We shall see, my friends. We shall see.